come vape with me. I'm making this video for all the people who, for their New Year's resolution, have switched from smoking to vaping. And I've got some advice, only because it might be helpful. And when you change to vaping, or if you become a vapor, it might be for life. So this is a serious decision. The first thing to think about is that psychologically you need to gear yourself up. Changing to vaping is like switching brands. You are still smoking, but you're smoking a different brand that has vapor and not smoke. And to realize that it isn't simply changing, it's also your body getting used to not having the 4,000 other chemicals that you find in a cigarette. So you might hit some problems, and this video is to help you with those problems. When you were out, you probably bought a device from the bar or a shop, something like this pre-packed with one battery and some cartridges and a sort of charger thing that you can charge your battery on your computer. Or you might have just bought this kind of thing, which is simply a throwaway electronic cigarette. In any case, whatever you did, you have started vaping. And you will find that you need to get used to vaping. First of all, the way you draw on the device is quite different than smoking. So you have to draw long, slow, and then you will make the vapor that is so satisfying. So you can't just pull on it, and the harder you pull on an electronic cigarette, the less vapor you'll make. So it's quite a little knack to learn to vape. You might have bought a device like this from some electronic cigarette vendor. It will be a starter pack, and in it you will have something to plug it into your computer or plug it in on a wire to a plug point. And whatever you've bought to start vaping with, you probably won't use it for a very long time. The reason is the small devices are only 250 milliamp hours. That means that one battery will only last you about 2 hours of vaping. And you will find at the end of that 2 hours, if you haven't bought a second battery or you haven't got a second battery to use, you will find you'll go back to smoking. And it doesn't matter if you go back to smoking, because in the beginning, if you're going to switch from smoking to vaping, you'll find that you will also smoke. And you must forgive yourself if you feel you're letting yourself down by smoking, because you're not. You're doing a very natural thing. When you have a cigarette, you're topping up on all those chemicals from the cigarette that you used to be having, and your body is totally devastated without them. So you will feel intense cravings, and this is not for the nicotine, it's for the other chemicals that you used to inhale in smoke. You will have withdrawal problems, the same withdrawal problems and symptoms that you will have when you give up smoking or go on patches, because all an electronic cigarette is doing is replacing some of the nicotine, and the nicotine from the vapor takes longer to get into your bloodstream than it does from a cigarette, and so you'll feel a longing for the hit of a cigarette. So just to repeat, when you buy your first device, it might be a throwaway device, it might be a rechargeable device with one battery, or it might be a starter kit from a vendor. In any case, whatever it is, you will need a second battery. So you need to buy a second electronic battery so that you can wind your cartomizers onto it. When the one goes flat, you've got another one charging on your computer or in a plug. So for me, the essential first thing, if you want to be sure that eventually you move over to vaping, is to have 2 batteries. Another thing which is very important when you start vaping is to go for a higher strength nicotine. It's no good smoking 4 milligrams of nicotine because that won't satisfy you. It would be better if you started vaping at a higher grade of nicotine. Start vaping on a higher dose of nicotine and gradually cut down the nicotine. But nicotine is a medication. I don't see it as a bad thing. It has many beneficial aspects. So I would tell a new vapor, don't stick to these 250 milliamp hour batteries, because after 2 hours you have to recharge. You will find yourself constantly piping around recharging batteries. So you need to, right from the beginning, as near as possible to the beginning, switch to ego type batteries. That's a bigger battery. I've decorated mine, but that's what they look like, and often they've got a cone on them, and this has got a drip tip on it, because this one I'm using for dripping. But if you were vaping, you would simply screw the cartomizer on the end of that, and that is a 650 mAh, so 650 milliamp hours battery, which means it will stay with you and provide you a good service for about 6.5 hours. So you might recharge once or twice a day instead of every 2 hours. And also it's more powerful, so you get a better hit. That is the feeling in your throat when you're vaping from a bigger battery. So right from the beginning, think of getting a bigger battery. So about the cartomizers, those are these small things that you get to screw onto the battery. Remember that you can fill them yourself, and filling your own cartomizer is much cheaper than buying them pre-filled. And how you fill them is to buy from a vendor some electronic liquid for filling your cartomizers, and it's very simple, and there's loads of videos on the internet on how to do it. And when you do, buy a suitable strength. Don't challenge yourself by buying some very low nicotine strength or even no nicotine, because you are transferring from smoking to vaping, and you need to be aware that you'll have massive cravings, not just for the nicotine, but for all the chemicals that you found in cigarettes. You need to be able to constantly support that craving with a little vape. Now, vaping is the most useful hobby because you can vape in a toilet and nobody would know you were smoking. You can stealth vape. How do you stealth vape? Well, you draw in the vapor into your mouth and lungs and you hold it just for a few seconds, and you do a second breath again, and you will find when you blow out there will be no vapor, only the comfort from having a dose of the nicotine that your body is craving. Vaping has great advantages to smoking. It's much healthier. In a week you'll find that your lungs are clearing. You are not coughing in the morning. You will find you feel clean. You don't smell like cigarettes. You will find you can even vape in places that you could never smoke. So you can satisfy your urge your desire for the nicotine simply by vaping. It's a very useful friend. Good luck in your vaping adventure, and own your pain. If you are feeling you really want a cigarette and that vaping is not satisfying you, that is true. For a while, that is exactly what will happen. But remember, it's your body craving all the other chemicals that has been so used to receiving every now and again. So if you do have another cigarette, forgive yourself. Because I think over time, if you vape and smoke and you rather favor the vaping and you try and vape more than you smoke, after a few days or a week, your body will get used to having less of those addictive 4,000 chemicals you found in a cigarette, and you will prefer vaping more and more. And the last thing is, join a forum. Go on the internet, see what other people are saying about vaping, and get a support group going around you. We vapers are very friendly people, and we have an answer if you want to get off smoking and become healthier. So, good luck in your adventure. Thanks for vaping with me.